Welcome to the Recruitment Rollercoaster podcast. My name is Hisham Azuz, and today I'm joined by Ally Esmaeili. Nailed it. Ally Esmaeili, who is one of the directors at Soap.
Yes.
Ally,
Yeah.
thanks for joining me, mate.
No problem. Thanks
Been
for having
looking
me.
forward to this.
Absolutely.
Normally, I'll start with how did you get into recruitment?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a bit of a curveball, mate.
Okay.
Soap.
Yes.
Where did that come from, mate? Is there a story? Yes, no.
Yes. No. Little bit. It was. It's a bit about being heard. It's about giving our brand a voice.
Okay.
And standing on top of a soapbox and being heard and
Oh, nice.
getting the message out there. So that's where it kind of originated from.
Really?
Yeah. But we get all clients.
Because it is like a mad name, isn't it? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's not just soap, it's like so much, I don't know,
Yeah.
like it's so much soap
Well, yeah,
on the website, but like it's soap.
Yeah, and it's we have a lot of clients and candidates asking about it. So
It stands out though.
it does, and that's what we wanted. It is different. There's a lot of funny sort of jokes come up about it, about trying to clean up the recruitment industry.
Yeah,
and things
that's what I was just thinking about. But like
Yeah.
if you look at sort of your company website, the colours and all that, like it does, it's like it's in your face. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
different.
Well, we
which
want
is
it to
really
be
cool.
different. You've got to differentiate yourself with so many recruitment agencies starting on a yearly basis. You've got to do something different.
Yeah.
So we were branding, our message, everything we try to do has to be a little bit different.
Yeah. That obviously that must have took a bit of getting used to that. Like, hi, my name's Ali. I'm calling from Soap.
Soap,
People
yeah.
are like, hey, do you work for a cleaning company? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. We get a lot of emails as well from soap distributors across the world, honestly. Saying that
Really?
they can help us distribute our products. So
That's
yeah.
so joke. Oh, they can help you distribute your products. Yeah. Brilliant. All right, cool. Just wanted to get that out there, mate,
No
straight
worries,
away
no
because I was
worries.
thinking about it. So, look, as you know, where I always like to start, mate. Obviously, we're just looking through your LinkedIn to refresh my memory. But how did Ali enter the world of recruitment, mate? Talk to me.
So I was brought into the world of recruitment by a friend, an ex-colleague of mine, who's now one of my business partners. He approached me. At that time, I had no experience in recruitment, always been in sales.
Really?
But yeah, he got into recruitment himself, had some success, and then was growing out his team. We actually bumped into each other by chance at a friend's wedding.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, really by chance. And I nearly didn't go to that wedding because I had actually been really ill a few weeks before that, like seriously ill. And I wasn't going to attend, but I did. And fate has it bumped into Ollie, and had a conversation about what he was doing and what he was trying to do, grow a team, build a team where he was. And at that point, I'd had quite a few friends and people that I knew in the industry say that it was, I could be suited to it. Never really actually committed to exploring the opportunity, but spoke to him about it, and then had some meetings, and ended up joining his team. And
Yeah, I guess it's always a good thing to join somewhere where like you've got someone that you've got a decent relationship with. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, someone you trust, someone you've worked with before, someone that you can, you've got good chemistry with, and that was really, really important. That was probably the biggest reason why I actually joined and got into recruitment.
Up until that point then, because like obviously your career, as you said, always did sales.
Yeah.
Obviously working from in the banks to estate agency to account manager.
Yeah.
Had you not dealt with recruiters during that period then?
So my first experience with recruiters was when I joined Coca-Cola. I was reached out to by their talent acquisition team. So I'd had some experience, but they didn't. That was the first time I'd ever been approached by a recruiter, and a couple of before that, I'd also had some recruiters put me into some jobs, but I never understood their job fully. I had some contact there when I joined Coca-Cola, and but it wasn't something that I ever thought I would do. It wasn't something that I ever thought that it could be a career for me. It was never something that I thought I could pursue and make a career out of.
So what? Just to finalise that, what was your perception of recruitment then before you joined Ollie and his team?
I thought recruitment was people sitting in cubicles, ringing out, cold calling, trying to, get people to move their current job to a new job. It just didn't really appeal to me. But I guess I never ever dug deeper than the surface level.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So then joined Ollie,
Yes.
and that was a business called Stott and May, yeah?
Yep.
And you was there for just under 3 years.
Yep.
And then you left there, and then has obviously been part of the soap journey from day one, right? And being involved with that.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in recruitment now?
Nearly 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Is it a career for you now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't. It's so strange because I couldn't imagine doing anything else. For me, it really fits me personally.
Yeah.
The goals that I want to achieve, the type of personality I have. I think a lot of the traits that even some that I didn't probably know I had within me, I think they've really developed since I've come into recruitment. So as an individual, I've grown so much in the last 4 or 5 years. And I've always been quite confident in myself, but I didn't really know what I was capable of doing until I was put into the position where I had to really, build out something for myself and show that entrepreneurship. So I think that's a big thing in recruitment. They throw out a word, entrepreneurial so much, and it's very cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah. I think just something that's popped into my head, mate, which I think is interesting in your journey. Like, how old was you when you got into recruitment and joined Ollie?
I was probably, very late 20s, early 30s. So probably on
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
do you know what I mean? Because I just thought that just because if you think typical recruitment owner or manager, right, I'm hiring for my team. Who do you initially think of? It's like young, hungry.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? So
totally agree.
How was that? Because obviously you had done you worked in different industries, blah blah blah.
I think, and this is an interesting point because I think that. Yeah, typically, historically, those are the kind of individual you look for, right? People who are willing to put in the hard yards, put in the hours. I didn't come from a recruitment background at all. I'd come from a sales background, but I feel that maybe that's why I've had some of the success I've achieved so far is because I didn't come from a recruitment background. I was a more mature individual.
Yeah.
And I think that allowed me to understand the job better. I think it allowed me to... be able to perform the functions. I think, when you come in and you're very green, you're young, it can be a daunting prospect. And also you have to be able to experience the highs and lows of recruitment. And when you've had, other sales roles where you've dealt with, the ups and downs, I think that really helps you going into this type of job because there is ultimately going to be ups and downs. And it's about how you deal with them. And I think, being a bit more mature and being the age that I was one of the big reasons why maybe now I'm seeing a lot more success. Yeah,
no, it's really interesting because I think when I started, it obviously what you had under your belt is which isn't maybe a typical someone that's just joining the industry typically may not have is life experience, right? Even though still very much young, late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
It can be quite daunting early on. If I think when I started speaking to people about their careers who are 35, 40. Not that age is a thing, but speaking to people that are a lot more older than you and stuff like that. So I guess the life experience you had on your belt would have definitely equipped you with more
100%.
Tools to relate or whatever. Do you get what I mean?
100%.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so what I always like to speak to people about is their first year in recruitment. So as you just said, you feel like things have really started to come to fruition now.
Yep.
Which obviously I know about because you shared with me. Let's just cast back to what it was like first year in recruitment. As we were just talking about, you've got this life experience, you've got different experiences. It helped you deal with the highs and lows. But how was those first 12 months?
Really, for me, I'd probably say a car crash. Really.
Really?
It didn't yet. It wasn't how I wanted it. It wasn't how I expected it to go. Maybe I was being a bit naive. Maybe I thought it would. I would, sort of get into it a lot better than I did. But it wasn't plain sailing for me at all.
Really?
And I think again that's probably helped me, to get to where I am now. But I had good training. I had good mentors. I still do now. But I think. My first year, I think a lot of it's interesting because I saw you mention something about the tenure of the average recruitment consultant being 13 months, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you get to the point where after the first year it's not happening for you, a lot of people might just think to throw in the towel there.
Yeah, sometimes less, mate.
Yeah, probably sometimes less. And to be honest, I probably could have done that myself. But for me, it was a kind of a sink or swim situation. I had a young family. I made a commitment to myself that if I was going to leave the role that I was in before I joined recruitment, which was pretty comfortable for me, then I had to make it work.
Yeah.
So I saw the long game, but really my first year was,
What did you
wasn't
build?
great. I can't even remember the exact number.
Come on,
but,
you did remember, mate. Come on.
I can't remember the exact number, but I don't think it was any more than 50 grand.
Really?
Yeah, really. It was.
Was it more or less than 24K? You know about this?
Yeah,
Was it?
was more, yeah.
You
It
sure
was
about
more,
that?
Yeah, it was more. But it wasn't a lot more.
Definitely less than 50K, yeah?
It was definitely less than 50K.
So it was nothing. But definitely more than nothing, but no. Okay. It's just... So look, let's just talk a bit about that for a sec.
Yeah.
A big reason why I started this was because of my experiences in the first year.
Yeah.
So as you said, it was a car crash.
Yeah.
Didn't bill a lot. You said that you could have very much quit. Been one of... So
Yeah.
Firstly, why did you not quit?
Again, like I said, it was 100% sink or swim for me. I'd made the decision, like I said, having a young family, and I wanted more. I was in quite a comfortable job, which paid well, but it wasn't something that I could ever see myself getting to where I wanted to be with. And I think the thing with recruitment is, and again, it's so cliche, but it's so true, is you really can fast track your career.
Yeah.
And I bought into that dream. I bought into that opportunity, and I thought I had to commit. And giving something a year is just not long enough. And I had to make that decision that if I'm going to commit to it, I need to give it enough time and for me to learn, because I came into it completely blind.
Yeah.
No experience whatsoever, just purely sales. So for me, there was no other option for me to continue. So that was really the driving force for me, was that if I didn't do it, I was 1 year away, or 1 year further away from being where I wanted to be.
Okay, I like that. Did you always typically have that mindset?
Do you know what? And to come back to what I said earlier as well, like I did, but I didn't know how much I did until I got into recruitment, and because a lot of the onus will fall on you.
Yeah.
You know, it's all down to how much you want it. You can carve out whatever you want for yourself. It's the amount of work you put in, the amount of effort, it will show in what you bill and what you can achieve. And to fast track your career to where I am today, compared to where I would have been if I stayed where I was before in my old business, there's just no way I would have been, fast track my career the way I did. So
yeah, that's obviously one of the great things about recruitment.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? So, okay then. So just quickly, what would you say then was the biggest challenge for you in that first year? Like, what was the thing that you really struggled to get to grips with that's worth just talking about for a second? What did you find most difficult?
I think at that time, what I didn't realize, it was probably more personal reasons outside of work.
Okay.
At the time, my mother was really ill. It was a very difficult time for me that I didn't realize how much it affected me until I was out of that situation, until it passed. But on a daily basis, I think getting my head around the jobs, getting my head around, the market, really committing myself to becoming a master in my market. I think until I decided to almost become obsessed with everything, at being, knowledgeable, at, knowing exactly who my clients were, who their competitors were, knowing the candidates. I think when I made that decision, that conscious decision to, really commit to knowing that and dedicating and becoming obsessed, I think I was just coasting. And it wasn't until that I tasted a little bit of, the billings, the earnings, that I thought, hold on a minute, this is really, there's so much potential here.
That's interesting.
So that was a big turning point.
Last question around that. So obviously, totally get personal circumstances.
Yeah.
That's obviously really difficult, and then hindsight's a great thing, right? Well, actually, that did definitely impact my mental game and these sorts of things. But if you was to go back again, how would you approach it differently? Like, if we're thinking people listening there a year in or whatever, like, or early on, how would you approach it differently, do you think?
I think the biggest thing is to, and again, it's quite cliche, but it's just so true, is knowing your market. You need to know your market. You don't need to be an expert, but you need credibility. And I think as soon as you start becoming credible and people trust in you, because that's the hardest thing, is gaining people's trust, both the client and the candidate side. You only have a small period of time to do that, especially on a potential first phone call. I think, committing myself to become incredible, to understand what I'm positioning, how am I different from the other 10 recruiters that have contacted this individual that same day in some cases. I think that's the biggest turning point for me. I think as soon as you understand that, don't take anything for granted. Don't take it to heart or too seriously. There used to be times when, I might hit the post with a candidate, they might get an offer or might have rejected it or sort of been rejected at final stage or whatever it may be, is to not let it affect you.
Yeah,
that is a big, it's so hard. Don't get me wrong, it's so hard. And that is one thing that I felt that maybe set me up for where I am now, is I had a lot of that in the first year.
Really?
And that really hardened me up to the point where you just have to get on with it. You have to move on. And I think if you can deal with that heartbreak and all that at the beginning, then it gives you a better chance to push on further down the line. If you have things all your own way to begin with, you often think it's quite easy.
That's a really good point. So just quickly on that. Knowing your market, these types of things. I think all I would say on that, I think if I was listening right now and I was early on, it is because I speak to people that when I sort of work with people, sometimes they might have a less than a year's experience or whatever, and a real challenge for people is feeling like they know their market and having the confidence like they know their market, even though they're like 6 months, 12 months. Do you get what I mean?
Absolutely.
That is difficult at the beginning 100%. To actually truly believe that you're a master of the market. And obviously it's a process. So I guess just a quick one on that, mate. Obviously you're going to be speaking to candidates, speaking to clients in terms of consistently learning about them, but how much was you doing outside of work out of interest?
Okay, so, and again, this is, I think, a big difference. So outside of work, it's interesting because I don't think that compared to now, probably hardly anything.
Really? At the beginning?
At the beginning, I was, and there was other circumstances. I was commuting from Brighton to London. I was leaving getting trains at like 6 in the morning. Getting up at 5, getting trains at 6 in the morning to be at the office at 7:45, having a full day there, getting a train back at like 6:30, 7:15, and getting through the door probably about 9 o'clock. So
a bit grim, that.
It was, it was very grim. But that definitely contributed to it. And these are the things I don't think I realised until the time passes. And like you say, hindsight's a great thing. Yeah. But until that time passed and went, and I reflected, I thought, okay, there were challenges, but there's always going to be challenges, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like I said earlier, now to the point where I'm quite obsessed with everything, to the point probably where I don't close my laptop or turn my phone over enough. I think if you put that effort in, and I say this to the people we hire within our business at the moment, the associates coming in, is you've got to be prepared to go above and beyond. Yeah. If you're not going to do something different to all the other recruiters out there, then you can't expect different results. If you want to be the best, if you want to have the best market knowledge, if you want to know, everything about your candidates, you need to do something different. You need to do what others aren't willing to do. And I think when you make that commitment, you can see so many results out of this. And I think it's just directly impacted by that.
When was that moment then for you? Was it like 18 months in?
I'd say that moment, yeah. About 18 months, 2 years in, when I went and actually worked internally for a vendor, which really helped me. I think when I worked...
when you was at Start May?
No, when I left Start May, I went and did a contract at a vendor, understood how they work from within, how they work with stakeholders, the processes and some of the challenges they face. So that gave me a really rounded understanding. So from both sides of the fence. And then really when I started it, with Soap, just... again, I think it's that sink or swim mentality, right? When you have to make something work, you do whatever you can. You've got to do whatever it takes. And as soon as my mindset switched, and I started really doing, spending more time, more hours investing in my development, that's when everything clicked for me.
So it didn't click at Start May?
It just didn't happen for me. It just didn't happen
that's like
for me.
just under 3 years.
Yeah, no, it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for me. It just, and it's nothing. I don't think it's got anything to do with anyone there or.
If you're playing the blame game, then you're not going to improve, are you?
It wasn't. No, I take full blame.
So how did you stay in that role, mate? What made you stay in that? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
That's difficult.
Do you know what? It's hard because everyone, they're taking a leap of faith on you. The pressure's on. You're feeling the pressure because you want to deliver, but it's just not quite happening. There's, and I'm the kind of person that takes all the blame on. I don't like playing the blame game. There's only one person that's responsible for the outcome, and that's me.
Definitely.
So, for me personally, it was difficult. It was challenging, but there wasn't really anyone else to blame. I had the tools that I needed. I was trained well. I had a good mentor. There wasn't. It was just one of those times where it just didn't quite happen to me. And I'm usually, over the years, I've been successful at what I've done. I've really tried hard to achieve targets and goals, and really push myself. But it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't happen for me.
How did you keep your job?
You'll have to ask the CEO. It was.
But that's like real. That's a real question, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's mad.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It wasn't. I was still billing, but it wasn't fireworks. I mean, we worked off.
Did you do over 100k? Third year.
So we then worked on a team basis. So myself, another. So basically, it was underneath, let's say, 360, and then there was myself delivering another colleague that was delivering. So we worked off a team. So effectively,
you got team commission.
So we got team commission.
Oh no!
Yeah,
really?
yeah. So effectively, put it this way. So we worked together as a team. So we could effectively help ourselves and each other out on the months where one of us maybe didn't do so great. There might have been quarters where one person did really well and the other didn't, but we had that relationship between each other. Okay. That was really good. We're all friends. We all knew each other, and we were all prepared. We all prepared to do that. We were all on board with that. That wasn't something that was put upon us. That's something that we agreed with together. Okay. Yeah. So really, in all essence, that was probably one of the main reasons. But as a team, we did deliver. But personally, I definitely
you felt like you could have brought more to the table.
100%.
Okay, just quickly, because this is the first time we've spoken about this, and we won't make the assumption like this is what it's like throughout the whole company. Within your time there, you agreed as a team that you're gonna do it in a team approach. Like, how the hell did that work commission-wise? Just quickly, because
So effectively, we got paid a team commission. The 360 individual who owned the clients and the account relationships, they obviously got a larger part of the commission. But then it always meant that me and the other individual, my colleague, we always got something. It always meant that which in essence actually wasn't too bad, because it always meant that you got some type of commission. Yeah. But it also didn't mean that there was never any fireworks. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it could have been better, but it could have been worse. The months that you don't bill and you're not getting any commission, often recruiters' base commission isn't very good. So in essence, it actually didn't work out too badly. But of course, it was, when you get into recruitment, you're getting into it for the big paychecks. You want that success. You want the big commission. But it definitely didn't happen for me there. And it was really tough, because, it was a long period not to have that taste. And I was always having conversations with my mentor, and we're always, he was always, believing in me, telling me that, I could do the job, that it was just a matter of time. That the belief there was one of the big reasons which kept me going. And
could you do team commission again? Answer it.
Well,
be honest.
Yeah, I think, I could.
Not now there's fireworks.
I think, do you know what? We've got a system at Soap where I think it's a little bit different. It's not the same to what we were doing at Start and May. So actually, there's good and bad bits to that, and also I'm investing in the people we bring in. I was once an associate, and for me, it's nice to one of my part of my job is to progress them. Is to teach them, to mentor, help them, and get them to where they want to be. Just like I was eventually.
Mate, I couldn't do team commission, mate.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, and I think it's important to help out the individuals around you. And if it essentially, if it gets them to where they need to be, it gets a business to where it needs to be, then.
You'd say this though, wouldn't you? Fair enough. No, that's fair. I just think that's so interesting. That team commission concept like that. That's really interesting. I was on the phone to someone the other day who said they had team commission, and I was just like, oh my god, I don't think I could ever do that. But I just wanted to ask you quickly before we really dig into sort of that moment you experience and sort of the journey you're on now, and sort of what you've been able to achieve, because I think that's where a lot of people get value. So you mentioned obviously mentor a few times. talk to me a bit about that, because that's something that I'm really passionate about, and I think a lot of people can benefit from. So, was this mentor, was it someone within the business? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And how did this relationship form then? Was it something that the business promoted? Did it happen organically?
Yeah, I'm still with him now. So he's the individual that brought me into the business. He mentored me.
Okay. Well, and then was he your manager?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and everything that I essentially learned, majority of it came through him.
Really?
There were other senior stakeholders in the business, the team leads, individuals that I still work with today as well, who had a big input. But most of it came through him.
Okay.
And that's really important. That's something that I'm trying to.
Just tell me a bit about how did that then, obviously, how did that become, a mentor? Obviously, this person was your manager.
Yeah.
So what was the sort of slight differences in terms of what made it a bit more of a mentor? Do you get what I mean?
Of course. Well, it's interesting because it's the relationship actually evolved that way.
Okay.
The relationship, obviously, I knew him personally. We were friends. We'd worked together before. We'd always been fairly close, and we'd grown up in the same circles. But then when I came into the business at start of May, it was, with him all the time. We travelled up to London together. We got the train together. He essentially taught me. He gave me the training program. He was one of the individuals that came up with the training program and delivered the training program. Yeah. So he invested a lot of time into me. 100%. We have quite similar personalities. We butt heads a little bit as well because we're quite similar. But at the same time, we share a lot of the same interests, the passion, the drive. We do share a lot of the same traits. So it was quite easy to learn off him and soak it up. And I think he found it easy to work with me as well and to deliver the message. To be, I wouldn't be where I am today without him. 100%.
Like it. Last thing before we move on to soap, just because I remember our own personal conversations, this came up. Big billers at Stock May. Yeah. See any of those when you were there?
Yes. Yeah. I saw a few.
What did you notice in these people?
Okay, so what did I know about SCP? These people were dedicated, 100%, knew their market, always consistent, always consistent.
Was that in what they were doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, on a daily basis.
Because it's more than consistent, always seeing their name on the board or whatever. It's like, do you know what I mean?
it's and I say the word obsession quite a lot. I think you have to be. To be at that level where you can bill X amount, year in, year out, or quarter in, quarter out. It's tough. It's difficult. There's so many things you need to take into consideration. So many different factors that a lot of them are outside of your control. There's only so much you can control. Which is really interesting with recruitment because, control the controllables, and then the rest of it, there isn't much you can do about it. Try your best to, influence. But I think every individual that I saw had very similar traits, and it was the fact they were very, very consistent. They were dedicated day in, day out. They always performed. It was very rare that you saw them have like an off day or a bad day. It was keeping a real high level of intensity, and that's hard. And it definitely inspired me. That's one thing that I noticed that seeing these individuals walk around the office. Yeah, there was an aura around these people, right? And it motivated me. One of the first things I saw when I went into the office was. The wall that had all the money on it and the billings and everyone was right. And I was like, wow, I had no idea what it meant and how it was, how the commissions worked. But when I saw the numbers on the board, on the wall, I was like,
is this possible?
This is wow. Yeah, wow. So, one of the first weeks I think I was there, I was like, this is just, the unreal type of money. So.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So then, left Start in May. Obviously, started soap. Yeah. With business partners. Yeah. How long are you into that journey now?
Over 2 years. It's over 2 years.
Just over 2 years. And talk to me a bit about the beginning of that journey, mate. Definitely not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy.
Who was that?
It was myself, 2 other colleagues. Like I said, after we did our internal stint, We then basically got into a position where we had our own ideas. We had our own ideas. We had our own message. I felt after we worked internally for a vendor and really understood some of the challenges they faced.
How long did you do that for?
About 6 months.
Okay. Let's just focus on that for a sec.
Yeah.
Just because I think there's so much value that people can get out of that. So let's just talk a bit about, as you were just saying there, sorry mate, 6 months. So that you started your journey with 6 months at this vendor.
Yeah.
So when you say vendor, you're in the cybersecurity space.
Cybersecurity space.
So, okay. So you worked internally.
Yeah.
So let's just share with everyone, what were the really real challenges that you saw within this business on the recruitment side?
Yeah.
And then also let's think about how much did you get involved, like as a recruiter, what were some of the horrific things that you saw from the agencies that tried to, do you know what I mean? Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, it was, I think a real big challenge was aligning stakeholders, aligning people, ensuring everybody was on the same page, because you've got hiring managers and stakeholders in different regions, different cultures, different communication styles who want one thing. Then you've got TA who have another objective, which is not too dissimilar to the stakeholder in that region, but they have an objective they need to achieve. And then even HR and the finance side of things. You have so many different business units and stakeholders that, of course, all want the common end goal, which is to hire somebody.
Yeah.
But they're not always aligned. And I think that was the biggest eye-opener, was that being on the other side of the fence as an agent in an agency, and thinking over the years, like, getting disgruntled with the TA teams, hiring managers, why haven't they offered a candidate, or, some of the challenges you face. You don't actually realise how they come about until you're in that position yourself, in essence, which is where we found ourselves. And actually, it really gave us an insight into the daily challenges that they go through, and it really allowed me to understand their position and what I can do as an agent differently to try and help them. And I think that was really interesting, because it gave me an insight into the businesses, the type of businesses that I was working with. Yeah. But really get to understand the internal workings, and it was really, really invaluable.
That's crazy that you found it a challenge being internal within the four walls.
Absolutely.
The state, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let alone
absolutely.
being outside.
Well,
that's crazy.
It just doesn't. Not a whole lot. Of course, a lot changes, but there's different challenges, and I don't think you really understand that. It's tough. It's really tough. These are sometimes hyper growth. Vendors that are experiencing huge growth, that are willing to invest in bringing people, into their teams globally. But things happen so quickly. Things can change so quickly. The ideas, the budgets. There's so many things that can change. And then, like I said, you've got different people, different stakeholders within different business units, all pulling, left and right, different, who all want different things. And it's so hard. That was the biggest challenge, to try and align everybody to get that common goal.
So with that in mind, then, definitely people listening in their market that aren't in your world are definitely going to experience the same challenge. I think that's fair to say, right?
100%.
So let's just share with everyone then, mate, with that challenge that you saw, that you experienced, how can people, and how do you approach now getting the stakeholders within the clients that you work with more aligned? Like, knowing what you know now, how can you try and get these people aligned?
I think it's communication, understanding the main drivers from all the stakeholders involved. What are the main drivers that they all have? Because effectively, some of them will be the same, and it's trying to align them all together and getting them to work to achieve that end goal. That is a tough side. But if you can have some control over the process, I think now that I'm out, in the back in agency and working with the clients we do today, it's I think the process is trying to understand and having control over the recruitment process. That is really important. And when I worked internally, I got an insight into how it works. When you're from the outside, you don't really have that much visibility. You're only told what you're told. Yeah. Sometimes you don't have it. You don't have any exposure to hiring managers. You might not. You might just work purely with the TA. That's the policy some vendors have, right? So that there isn't a huge amount you can do, but if you can, have that direct line, and you can create some type of control, that, these are the types of things that it gave me a better understanding about. And I really think maybe that's a big reason as to why now I'm having a lot more success, because I understand better how these companies work internally.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So firstly, you need to actually understand who's involved in making this hire, or who's involved in enabling me to put this person into this business or whatever. And then again, filtering that down. So there's 3 people involved: hiring manager, owner of the business, and TA, whatever. Just making it up, and actually then treating those people as individuals and why it's important to them to get that hire. And some of them may be the same, but as you correctly said, some of them might be the difference. So then when I'm speaking to TA and going, look, Susie, like this is where we're at with things, blah blah blah. Remember, you told me why this is really important to get this hire. Obviously you've got your headcount targets, blah blah blah. And then you're on the phone to Jim, who's a hiring manager, and go, look, Jim, like this is where we're at with it, blah blah blah. You told me like this is going to enable you to hit your quota target, whatever.
Exactly.
Is that fair to say?
The recruiter's still inside you.
Is that fair to say that?
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of people can benefit from that. It's like, don't treat everyone with this, that they all have this. Obviously, everyone has the same objective,
absolutely,
but the same drivers. And then I'm assuming that you then, if you really make the time to understand these people on an individual basis and individual drivers, you can then use that to influence. And
and also it's often. It's also the types of individuals that these people are looking for, and we find it quite often with the clients that we work with today. It's like, the stakeholders in different regions might have an idea of what they want, but then the HR and TA team, they might have a different opinion on what they're looking for. And it's actually, sometimes they're not even aligned on the type of person they want. So it can be so challenging. And these are the things that it's quite difficult, because you can try and have control on... You probably want control on everything, but the reality is you're not going to get that. So it's about trying to influence and control where you can, and then guide the process. But ultimately you can't have control over everything. But understanding, communicating with your clients, and understanding them as people, I think it's so important. To understand who you're working with. Their own values, what that individual's about, what he's looking for, or what she may be looking for in the type of people they want to bring in. I think the better you understand the bigger picture, the more chance you have of delivering value to your customer. And that's the bottom line is what are you going to do differently? How can you provide better value than your competition?
Yeah, you just touched on it then. I was just interested to get your thoughts on when you say obviously try and control the recruitment process, stuff like that. I mean, you like now on obviously dealing with different clients, blah blah blah. You're limited to how much, like what for you then, knowing what you know now, blah blah blah. Like what part of the recruitment process is like really key to you that you have influence over, and do you know what I mean? That's difficult.
Yes, it's tough. And again, every client's different, and they all have different processes. They all have different rules of engagement and terms of engagement. I don't think any 2 clients are the same. I just think it's really important to ensure that you and the individuals that you're working with are all aligned. I think it's good to have timelines in place. I think it's really important to understand what your client wants, how they're going to achieve that, and what they're also willing to do. What are they willing, the effort, the commitment they're willing to make for you to also achieve your end goal.
Okay.
Because it's a partnership, and I think when everybody's aligned, including the agent, I think you can create a really streamlined process. And again, that's obviously in an ideal world, but I think having the ability to meet with these people. Really understand what they're looking for. That's the only way. I think if you treat it as too much of a numbers game, you're not going to get the outcomes you want, and you won't be as targeted. So I think having that, speaking with them, meeting them, understanding, really in detail what they need, what they want, and then also getting the commitment from them, that is really important, because without that, the processes, interviewing, things can take so long. And then, time kills deals. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
So the longer things goes on, the longer the process can take, it can really affect the outcome.
Okay. So how has all of this and how you're approaching things and sort of your perspective on all this impacted your performance then, mate?
I think that's what's been the big difference for me. I think now that I had that experience, understanding how the internal companies work, understanding how my clients worked. I think that's really allowed me to position myself better with my clients.
Okay.
Allowed me to add more value to them, and essentially allowed me to bill more because I'm able to control better the process than I did before. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. There's always room for improvement.
But you just have more of an understanding of all the moving parts.
That's definitely the difference between what I was doing before and what I'm doing now.
So what are you on track to do this year, mate? Come on, what are you hoping to hit?
Plus 300.
Yeah?
Yeah. Good pipeline for Q4 is always.
Will that be your biggest year if you make it happen?
100%.
What did you do the year before?
180, I think. 180. Yep.
Let's talk about this for a sec.
Yep.
I think a real comment, thinking of just a couple of more things I want to go into. Yep. Real common thing that people ask me about is business development. I know that's something that you feel pretty strongly about, and you're talking about the client piece, blah blah blah. So, but just for a sec, let's sort of go into sort of Ally working at Stott & May, being a bit of a flop.
Yep.
Now obviously obviously being part of the soap journey. Yep. Billing 180k in your first year to now hoping to break the 300k mark. Like that's a pretty hefty jump and a different circumstance that you're now in.
Yeah.
So let's break this down a bit, because I think a real common thing that people ask me is, Hisham, I'm at the sort of 200k mark, 250k mark. I want to break the 300k mark. I'd love for you to talk to people about how they've broken through that plateau. Do you know what I mean? Let's talk about that. So I'm sure some of the things you already spoken may contribute to this, as you were just saying, but how do you think, and what key parts have sort of contributed to you potentially being able to break that 300k mark?
I think so. Firstly, the big thing was as soon as I joined Soap, I was doing 360 role. So I had my own clients where I was going and delivering on my own clients. Before that, I wasn't. I was doing purely delivery. Yeah. But it's something that I felt that I fell into really well. I've always been in previous sales roles. I've always been quite new business focused. It wasn't something that I had a problem with, trying to reach out to new clients and leveraging my network and relationships to get meetings and bring on new roles. I actually enjoy that, and that's a really strong part of my abilities. But I think the difference is now is that it's working roles that you can fill is really important. I think working the quality of job, something we're really hot on, is making sure you invest your time working on the roles that you have a much higher chance of filling, whether that's about the control you have, the relationship you have with the client, wherever that relationship may be. Invest your time on filling those roles where you've got better chances.
Quick one, sorry to butt in.
Yep.
How do you measure if it's a fillable role?
Okay, so we've got our own analyzer.
Give it to me. Come on.
So basically, it's a brainchild of one of the directors, and he's very, very creative with this kind of stuff. And there's something actually a new process that he's put in where we kind of analyze our clients, and we look at we score them and rate them.
Okay.
For different things on from many things we talked about earlier. What kind of relationships you have, who you're speaking with, budget for roles, time to hire, have they got interviews, etc. arranged, quite a few different things. We then give them each of those a score.
Okay, you do personally?
Personally, we give them out of 5.
Out of 5, okay.
And then we rate them at the end, so you get the final figure.
Yeah.
And then you can gauge there. It's quite interesting, because then you can actually go, hold on a minute, I thought I had a really good, this was a really good client of ours that we've got really good quality jobs, and then you actually look at it and you think, hold on a minute, actually it didn't score as high as I thought it would. Where can I make differences?
Wait, what are the key metrics again? Sorry, I think that's really useful for people to know.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different things,
but what are the core metrics?
But we rate on so the relationship we have, right? With
what? And how do you measure that though? Just like
so
you just say
who with how like, for example, how often are you speaking with these with the clients?
Yeah.
Do you have weekly calls? Are you speaking to TA? Are you speaking to a hiring manager?
Okay.
Is this someone you've worked with before?
And that all contributes to the measuring of how good the relationship is.
Exactly that.
Okay.
Have they got budget for a role?
Yeah.
Do you have are they exclusive terms? Are you working retained?
Yeah.
There's so many. There's quite a few different things to think about, right?
And then that spits out an overall number, and then it's like X means that this is a
for
very
example,
let's
just say out of 20, let's say out of 20 and you score 10, you're like, okay, hold on a minute, I thought it was going to be higher than that. And then that allows you, and also it allows you to see where you could be weak on the account and where you could see development. So really, really good tool. And that gives us a chance to really understand what level of service we're providing for our clients at the moment and where we can improve. There's always areas where you think you can improve, but it's also down to the client as well to work with you. And it's actually quite a good tool to use to show them and say, we gain feedback from the clients on this, and it's quite interesting to get their feedback because it also allows them to see maybe whether they're slightly weak. So if you've got a good relationship with the internal talent acquisition teams, you can position this in a way where it's actually beneficial for them to understand, how it is or what it looks like for an agency to work with them. So it actually gives them.
No, I totally get that. So it's like, look, TA, like typically where our best relationships where we offer the best value,
exactly,
they typically rate around this. Exactly. What I've noticed is right now we're poor in these areas.
Exactly.
If you're serious about getting to where you want to get to, achieve your targets, this is why we need to invest that. So I think that's wicked. So just quickly before you talk about other things, so definitely couldn't agree more. Work jobs that you can fill, and you've become really good at that. Including this system like this. So for someone listening right now who be like, Ali, this sounds great, however it sounds a bit complex, blah blah blah. From your experience, what have you always made sure out of all those metrics? Typically, if it's one or two things, one thing that you make sure it's scoring high, would you say? Like, do you know what I mean?
I think you've always got to ensure that you're staying close to the market. You're speaking to candidates, whether they're new or old, keeping in touch. A really interesting thing is I've made a lot of placements with candidates who I initially didn't have success with placing or getting them interested with a role, right? A lot of people may just make an assumption. Assumption's a really bad thing to do. You should never assume in this game.
Wait. I don't know if I made that question clear. We're going to go into this.
Yeah.
So what I just wanted from you, was like, you're talking about the metrics.
Yeah.
All I just wanted you to sort of say was like, right, if there was one thing, or two things, three things, whatever, that you always make sure that your client scores high on.
Oh, client.
Do you get what I mean? Okay. Yeah. Sorry, that was my bad. So what I just wanted to sort of finalise that was,
sorry.
Ali, this sounds great.
Okay,
100%. I need to be making sure that I'm measuring my relationships. I'm working for liberal jobs.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I just want to say was, if someone's listening right now and they're like, right, so obviously maybe it'd be a bit difficult to measure all the metrics. I don't have this, blah blah blah. But I listened to this podcast and Ali said, if I always make sure that XXX is always scoring higher, I feel really strongly about it, that's going to mean that I'm going to have the best possible chance of filling the job. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So for you, what do you always make sure scores high?
It's always the level of engagement, right? Okay. So the terms are commercial terms, but the level of engagement with the client. So whether it's, obviously retained is always the best, but having exclusivity on a role for a period of time. The better relationship, of course, the more trust you'll have, but and even proving yourself. And what I've done over the past with new clients is always ask them to measure me on my success and giving me a chance and giving me an opportunity to prove myself on a set period of time. And then if I don't, then fine. I haven't proven myself to you, and I always find that because that's given me an opportunity to produce and put me under pressure.
Okay, so it's ultimately, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but if you're listening right now, really think about the level of engagement these clients are giving you that you have jobs for.
Absolutely.
Like, even as much as, are they returning your calls? Like, are they giving you interview feedback quickly?
Exactly.
Are they willing to give you a chance to see if you can deliver? Blah blah blah. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but ultimately, the core of it is, if you're listening right now and you want to build more, let's look at your client, look at your clients like, right, who do I have the best relationships with now? And think about how engaged are they with you and these types of things.
Exactly. It's the quality. Exactly that.
All right, cool. So, and then obviously, as you were saying, mate, sorry to butt in, but I just wanted to make that clear. So, like, as we were talking about, like, how has Ali gone to this point where you're looking at breaking the 300k mark? So you're just talking about then, what other things come to mind for you then? So what other things do you think has really contributed to it?
Not being complacent, not assuming, like I said earlier, not assuming
Assuming's
anything.
Big, isn't it? I used to be quite bad at that.
It's the mother of all as you know.
Yeah, at the beginning, it's so easy. I remember it so clearly. It's so easy at the beginning because there's an element of like being a bit not as confident on the phone, blah blah blah. But it's so easy to go if like you was managing me and I was looking at the CV, I'd be like, nah, yeah, like you're looking for the thing that makes you decide not to call them.
Exactly.
Innit? It's
and
mad.
you're making that decision in your mind without even speaking to them, right? And
Yeah.
do you know what the best thing, but the worst thing for that is? The best and the worst thing, which has happened to me before, still happens to me now sometimes, and actually one of the best things to keep me on my toes is when a candidate that I know in my network, who I know pretty well, I decided wasn't good for a particular role, then that individual comes up on LinkedIn, ping, has started at that client.
Oh,
that is
killer.
that is the biggest bite in the arse you can get for you to realise that you can never assume. You just can't, because things change so quickly. And it's like I was saying before, was that the amount of placements that I've made speaking to candidates, even about the same job 2 or 3 months before, who said no, but then 2 or 3 months later things have changed, have then gone on and taken the job. It was things like that which I think have really spun it for me. Not being complacent, not assuming anything, ensuring that I'm speaking to my network, making sure I'm speaking to the best candidates possible, but never taking anything for granted. I think as soon as you do that and get complacent, is like you say, you can make the tiniest little excuse in your head not to ring a candidate, and that's it. Then they're off your list.
How do you catch yourself doing that now then? Because I'm sure obviously you managing obviously associates, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that you don't assume? Because it's so easy to do.
It is so easy to do, and it's something that you try and filter down to the associates, and you try and give them your own experience. Like, do you know what? I've done that before, and it hurts when you see that happen when a candidate joins a client for a role that you could have. It's painful. It's money out your pocket.
Horrible.
It's money out your pocket, and it's happened to us before. It happened to us again.
Oh, I hate that.
It's about trying to, as hard as possible, to limit it. But it's you have to correct. Do not assume. Call them. Why? Why would you think they wouldn't? Oh well, they might be at the budget or blah blah blah, whatever it might be. How many times have if you've got a good relationship with your client, you can get your clients to try and increase the budget. You could then try and get the candidate. If it's the dream role for the candidate, they're probably going to be willing to take a little bit less.
So you're doing this to yourself? I'm sure that you might have needed, because I knew I needed my manager to do this a lot.
100%.
So when we get people up, my old manager used to be like, so why haven't you called this person? And I have to justify why I haven't. And it's like, fuck, I need to call
I
him
still
back.
get called out now sometimes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's like, so you need to be having that conversation with yourself.
100%.
So if you, it's having
practice what you preach. You've got to practice
so you got to catch yourself. If you, it's just being able to have that internal dialogue and be like, okay, so I've just made the decision not to call this person. Why?
My mentor always said was, what is your gut saying, right? And your gut, and if your gut is, if you're trying to get out of calling someone, if you're trying to make an assumption, but if your gut is saying, look, but you have to call this person, you just got to go with it, and it's about being honest to yourself.
Yeah.
If the worst thing is to see candidates join your clients and you can put them in, and you can't afford to do that because it's a phone call. It's a phone call. If you've got a relationship with that candidate already, you ask them. The amount of times, this is a very quick market, cybersecurity market, software sales in general, enterprise sales. Things can change so quickly that candidates could say no to you one week, and literally the next week it could be a completely different story.
Yeah. Anything else? So we've talking about like working jobs that you can fill, making sure you're working with clients that are engaged and as we said, can obviously make money out of those relationships. Don't assume. Anything else, mate, that sort of comes up for you in terms of?
Again, like I said, I think for me a big difference was when I was prepared to go above and beyond and become a bit more, use the word obsessed with it. That is where it came for me, was that when I was doing work or researching outside of work hours, when I was prepared to, take a shorter lunch break or, just doing whatever I could to give myself the opportunity, working more roles, getting more candidates in, just giving myself every chance I could to ensure that I filled a role, that I got my pipeline big enough to close as much as possible. And I think as soon as you make the commitment to do what others won't, that is when you'll see a big difference, and it's tough, it's difficult, but when it clicks and it changes, and I think a lot of recruiters have that light bulb eureka moment where, wow, it all changed. it's then you start getting all the benefits and achieving the success and the billings, whatever it may be, whatever your idea of success is. As soon as you start achieving that, it becomes like a drug, and you just want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
So what you're talking about here is mindset and work ethic.
Mindset and work ethic. I think that is a big thing is to listen. Is to listen, right, to your mentor, whoever your manager is. If you believe in them and you trust in them, and they've put the belief in bringing you on board, listen to what they've got to say. It's so important because salespeople often, depending where you're coming from, whether it's from a recruitment background or whatever else, you often think you know everything.
Yeah,
a lot of people do, and as soon as you listen, take things on board, be open to learning. That was a big thing for me as well, big time, and I think that's a big thing for everybody else out there. Is if you really want to make it happen, the mindset, being consistent, making sure you're speaking to candidates. This is a job that you've got to call people. You've got to get on the phone. You've got to speak to people.
Yeah,
it's so important. It's not about who's got the best call times every day, or the best call stats. It's obviously quality of who you're speaking to and the kind of conversations you're having. But you're not going to get anywhere if you don't speak to candidates. If you don't speak to the market, that's where you'll learn everything.
Yeah. No, I love that, mate. And then just to add to that point, at the live event, Tony, who was on the panel, he said he quoted a book called Legacy, which is to do with the All Blacks.
Yep.
And one of the things that he said, which I think is great, and sort of as to your point, so it'd be interesting to get your point on this, is like where like their sort of commitment was always when they're at the top of their game, like always open to evolve and always open.
You have to be.
Do you know what I mean?
Have to be.
So it's that. So like
100%.
I can sense from you, it's like, okay, so I might hit this mark, but that doesn't mean that I know it all. And do you know what I mean?
Not.
So I think
No.
that's you've got to be prepared to.
You have to be. And do you know what? It's and again, coming from what I saw myself at previous companies, what my mentor, seeing how much he built, and you always have to be willing to learn, take things on board. There is, I'm still relatively fresh into my recruitment career. I think I am. I don't think there's so much more room for improvement, and you have to be willing and have that mindset. It's very easy to have a good month, a good quarter, a good year. You really are, performing at a level or at that top level when you are doing it quarter in, quarter out, year in, year out. That is when you're mastering your market. And, I've got ambitions to do better. I want to do better next year. I want to build more. I want to bring on more clients. And that for me is I'm always looking and striving to do better. And that I don't think that'll stop. And that's a big thing for me personally.
Was you always like that?
I was always very competitive. I've come from like quite a sporting background. I played sports to quite a high level. I was very, into, individual and team sports, and that ingrained it in me, right? But I think the thing with the recruitment is because it's quite entrepreneurial and it's all a direct. Everything that you gain is directly from your effort and your impact. Then it becomes, you start seeing actually, well, if I put in that energy, if I put in that effort, if I make sure I'm consistent every day, things grow. And that's why it's a business within a business. And there's so many cliches in recruitment, but they're all there for a reason because they're true. And it's about what you can make of it.
Not when you're on team commission, mate.
Not anymore.
But no, totally.
All changed.
I think that
was when it all changed.
That is the mindset that you want to have, isn't it? That is what it's all about.
And it's do you know what? And when I say about committing to it and becoming obsessed, it's it's when I stopped, partying as much. I enjoyed going out and having a good time and everything, enjoy my family and friends. But when I started thinking to myself, actually, if I do go out and if I do come in and have 2 or 3 days where I'm still catching up with myself, so I'm feeling a little bit rough, or it might be, those little chunks they take up. You add them all up, right?
Yeah. All right, a couple of things before we finish.
Yeah.
BD. Yeah. Always talk about it on here, just because it's as I'm sure you've experienced in people around you, people that you hire now. It's a hard part of the job.
Yeah.
It was definitely a difficult part for me. Obviously, as you said, from your prior experience getting into recruitment, you've been in the B2B world, you've always been on the phone, new business, etc., etc. So obviously, from sort of our relationship and what I know about you, you see, and you have a focus on BD, and that's a big contributor to you billing more, etc. So let's just talk a bit about sort of your perspective on business development. I mean, firstly, from the associate, I know obviously you've got a model where people deliver and focus on candidates, etc. But typically, what are some of the things that you see or feel like people do on the BD front that sort of prevents them from having that success? Do you know what I mean?
I think you've got to. I personally believe that actually bringing on a role isn't as hard as people think. I think bringing on clients and bringing on a role is actually easier than filling it. That's my personal belief, right? Okay. I think people and consultants, and we have it where we've got associates and consultants at the moment who are making that transition in their journey from going from a delivery consultant into looking into going 360.
Yeah.
And it's about the process you have. It's about how do you approach it. I don't think the big thing for me, the big difference for me was when I stopped looking at hiring managers and big titles and big names as people that were unapproachable, people that would not speak to me, that wouldn't answer the phone to me.
What changed that? 'Cause I had that challenge.
That the mindset was just that what I started doing was treating them as a candidate.
Yeah.
As soon as I started treating a client as a candidate, I could extract all the information I needed.
Yeah.
I could understand more about them. I could actually offer them a bit more value when I was talking on their level as not someone that just wanted something from them. Yeah. Someone who was actually prepared to speak to them and understand what they might be looking for when they move. You know, I think too many BD or individuals, recruiters that are trying to move into BD, you know, they're cold calling and they're just going straight in for the kill. They're going straight in trying to, you know, pick up roles and you know, I just don't think that's the best approach. I think as soon as you start treating them like a client and as a candidate and building long-term relationships, and again, I said this before about, you know, with candidates where I've not, may have placed a candidate 2 or 3 months after the first time I spoke to them about a particular role or where they might have said no. The same thing applies for a client, you know. You're not always going to, you know, score a goal on the first shot, right? You have to be prepared to play a little bit of the long game, keep in touch. You know, say you'll follow up when you say you're going to follow up.
Yeah.
You know, things change in their world a lot. So there's so many things that you need to consider, but a lot of recruiters will not do what they say they're going to do. So if you say you're going to follow up, if you're going to keep in contact, you know, follow up when you say you're going to follow up. Yeah, you know, take an interest.
That's come up a couple of times.
100%.
So what do you book it? Do you say, right? Do you agree it there and then on the call?
Absolutely, agree it there and then on a call. You know, I make sure I stay in contact with them via WhatsApp.
And then you put it on your diary.
Put it in my diary. Just keep contact. You know, share personal interest. You know, keep close to them. Talk. You know, discussing actually things about the market and their industry that are relevant. Gaining their feedback on things. It's a relationship, and you know, if you want to become a trusted partner, it has to be a much more. You know, have to be on a deeper level than just transactional.
Yeah.
And I think as soon as you start getting relationships with these individuals and they begin to trust you more, and it's more than just on a transactional level, things will change, and then you'll be the first person they think about. Again, there's times when I've had, you know, clients that it's taken me, you know, 6 months or a year to convert, which is a long time, but then they become some of my biggest clients.
Yeah.
It's about you know, the approach. It's about doing what you say you're going to do, keeping in touch with them, keeping in contact, taking interest, you know, speaking, being a master of your market.
So you mentioned there around, obviously a lot of people typically just go straight in for the kill.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, if I'm you're in my market and I see Ally, he's a CEO, and I call him and it's like, Ally, I'm a specialist recruiter, blah, blah, blah. Like, have you got any jobs? Right, that's what you're talking about. How do you typically approach it now then?
I think, look, there's a time and a place for that. I think if you speak to candidates who are actively interviewing and they tell you they're interviewing with a company that you're not working with for a particular role that you know you've got candidates for,
definitely go straight in for it.
It can be as simple as that. It can be, and it depends on their need. How urgent is that need for them?
Yeah.
If they're desperate, the likelihood is the hiring manager will say, yeah, just send me the candidate. I'll have a look at them. You know, if they're good, the CV's good, and I'll interview them. And it can be. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it probably isn't. But I think it's a good approach is to be targeted and understanding where the need is. So if you do know that that companies are looking for a particular individual in a particular territory, if you know that they use agencies, if you know that they engage with external headhunters to help support them, you can be targeted about your approach. You can, a lot of the times I've had and brought on new clients off the back of, doing senior hires. So when I've had big senior hires for some of my clients, and I've reached out to the market for, senior leaders.
It's like flipping them from candidates.
The likelihood is if you get a short list of 10 candidates and one of them gets a job, you've got 9 other candidates there that you've built up a good relationship with, and shown them your process, shown them how you deal with a candidate, shown them the kind of detail you go into. Yeah. And then it's a much easier conversation to go into. Well, look, are you hiring? Last time we spoke, you mentioned that you got some headcount coming up for the next year, or you're replacing someone, you're finding it difficult.
Yeah. That's always that always seems like a bit of a quite effective way to.
Yeah, I think it's not new. It's been around for a long time. But it works. It works. It works. It works. And at the end of the day, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But I think the key part there is that mindset shift of making sure you don't look at hiring managers, CEOs, 100%. Whoever.
It is another human being, and I promise you now, what's so interesting, and I say it to all of the associates and consultants that are moving through into a 360, is I get the best response for particular jobs when they're senior leaders. I find that I get a better response rate when I'm reaching out to candidates for senior leadership roles than when I do for just an account manager in a particular region.
Wait, you're saying when you reach out to senior people when you're talking to them about potential jobs, or are they open to jobs?
Yeah, exactly. If I've got a senior
would you make up a job, or would you always do it when you got a job? Let's be real.
A bit of both.
yeah, fair enough. That's fair. I definitely did that.
100%, and it is. I totally agree. I'll be honest about it. It's a bit of both, but it's so interesting to see that the senior leaders, you build up this. You kind of put them on such a pedestal where you think they're so unapproachable, and often look, these guys are so busy, man. They haven't got time to barely speak to their family, let alone another recruiter. But when you go to them with a senior level job, it is so interesting to see how many of them respond. It's so interesting.
Okay, that brings me on to the last sort of point. I'd be stupid to not talk to you about this, mate, because obviously we've been doing some stuff together. I think this ties quite nicely with the BD stuff, right?
Here comes a plug.
No plug, mate. But I obviously, as you know, I'm really passionate about personal branding. Yeah. So I think let's just talk a bit about sort of your experience in not doing overly loads, a bit on LinkedIn, like the typical recruiter, to now you've become really consistent in sharing videos, blah, blah, blah. So let's just focus on the BD piece. Like how was sort of you consistently sharing content amongst with the headhunting and doing what we're talking about? How has it impacted?
Massively.
Yeah, so like, has it so like in terms of speaking to people off the back of videos, do you know what I mean?
I've had, as you know, like you saw the success I've had, even within the first day, the first hour.
Yeah.
But it's the interesting thing, the part that you brought that I think people know, but again, it's not committing to it, and you're opening your eyes to using LinkedIn as a source to project to the market, to your network, yourself, your brand, because at the end of the day, people are buying people, right?
Yeah.
The thing about recruitment is that people buy the individual and not necessarily the brand name. So it could be any name. And what you've done, and I think that the impact it's had on what I'm doing is, I'm doing things differently to what other recruiters are doing, especially in my space. And what was interesting, what you brought to my attention was that a lot of my competitors aren't doing anything. So
it's been able to feed everything that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Which is just the point, because I think 100% everyone in terms of BD keep doing what you talk. As you said, you don't need to fix something that isn't broken.
No.
Do all of that, but then at the same time, you have an amazing tool right now in terms of LinkedIn.
100%.
You can start sharing your opinions. So that's just huge for me, that people understand that that's also a tool in your arsenal that you can use. Do you know what I mean? Okay, mate. As we finish,
yes.
What I wanted to ask you was one thing, actually, just because I've been asked a lot about it recently, so I've always just mentioned it at the end. Counter offers.
Yes.
What's been your experience like that because I've had quite a few messages recently saying, Hisham, I've really felt that like counter offers have become like they've been more prevalent than they have been in the last year or so, if that's because of Brexit, whatever.
Yeah.
What's been your sort of perspective on counter offers?
I've been stung a few times, if I'm honest. But the interesting thing is, and the statistics around this is, if someone, I think counter offers, you've always got to speak to the candidate about and remind them about the reasons they're looking in the first place.
Yeah.
I think there's a statistic out there, and I think it's above 80%, that candidates who accept a counter offer from their current employer will leave their job within 6 months. I think it's over 80%.
I don't know how true that is.
It's out there. It's out there.
The thing is, the only reason I say that is like I just like I've seen so many recruiters do content on this.
Yeah.
And the percentage changes all the time.
Okay, well,
but I get what you're saying. So do you say that to candidates?
I've used the number, absolutely.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's you have to remind them why are you looking to leave? Because money, if it was about money, the likelihood is if your client who wants to hire that candidate really wants them, and in a business their current employer comes in with a counter offer, if your client really wants them, there is a chance that they will stretch their budget to try and match that or more. There is always that chance. But if it's about the money, then you can get more money. But if it's about more than that, it's identifying the pain, and often that pain could be, not getting on with their manager. So if they accept the counter offer, they're still not going to get on with their manager.
Yeah.
There's so many.
So it comes back to the beginning. Like you need to know what their drivers are, reason for leaving, and that's the button you need to push.
Remind them of that, because money's not going to solve that problem. It's not going to change it.
All right, mate. What are you excited about
for the future?
Yeah, man. What's going on in soap? What are you excited about?
So many things. We're growing. We've got we've got our plans. We've got plans to grow. Across US, across different territories. Inviting new people into the business. We've got, it's such.
So you've got an office in Brighton.
Got an office in London.
I've obviously been to the Brighton office.
You have.
You've just got the place next door.
We've got the place next door. So
looks quite empty, mate. You need to get some people in there.
It's gonna be my office. No, we've got big plans to grow. Yeah, we're at a really exciting time. It's still a big learning curve for me personally, but really excited to continue my personal development, my growth. Working with you with my personal branding. The possibilities. It's a really exciting time, and definitely for me personally, right now, it's my career. These are the highlights of my career at the moment.
Yeah, it's amazing, mate. Glad to hear it. So, last question I always ask people before we finish.
Yep.
So you can answer this question with a word, a phrase, whatever comes to mind, right? So it is, if Ali could communicate to every single recruiter out there, they'd listen, they'd take on your advice, they'd implement it tomorrow.
Yep.
What would you say to them, mate?
I would say the most important thing is, and again, I've said it before earlier, is be the master of your market.
Yeah.
Be the master of your market, and candidates will come to you, clients will come to you. There's no way you will not earn money.
I love it, mate.
There you go.
Great story, Ali.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mate.